So I'm gaining weight. I've gone from 37 kilos to 40 kilos in just the past week because I've been eating a lot, but we're not going to talk about that. I just thought to mention it because I get relatively more self-conscious when I do gain weight. I'd like to talk about how for the past several weeks I think that I've been existentially in crisis relative to my internet presence for very obvious and understandable reasons, but many of which are still personal and that nobody really goes on to think about besides myself, and so I'd like to think about them now. Compartmentalize everything that I feel about this. I don't really think or feel very much throughout the day, on any day, because of my mood stabilizers and antidepressants and just all my medication in general. I haven't made a video talking in a long time, I think, because of that. And part of that would be frustrating, but I don't mind. It's not because I don't really have much of anything substantial to say, and therefore I don't really care. But yeah, something like that. Something exactly like that. And so it's not as if I don't have anything substantial to say in this moment. I probably do, but I will struggle to make any coherent string of thoughts. No, I won't, but I might. I just might. The thing about having grown accustomed to externalizing your existence on the internet in the way that many people haven't is that it becomes habitual for you. You grow into the habit of making content, externalizing yourself into content, on and on and on and on, every day or every other day, just on. And when you go on to do that from the age of 15 onward to 16 to 17 to 18 to 19, and then you're nearly 20, you come to a certain standstill depending on your content. Depending on my content, I definitely have come up to my threshold a long time ago, and everything that I make and have made since whatever place that I can't necessarily pinpoint in the moment, it feels stale and forced. Nothing that I make really seems to have heart, and even if it did have heart, none of it is coherent, and even if it was somewhat coherent, none of it feels the same anymore. That, of course, largely has to do with the shift in my algorithmic standing. That's the thing. I was thinking something along the lines earlier of how when you become a content creator, you are who you are, but commodified. And when you eventually run out of things to make, even if you have all the reason or at least the will to be there, it doesn't really change the fact that you're all out, you're all spent, and that causes this rift into what is habitual to you, and that's where the crisis begins. Like, where do I go from here? What do I do? I don't have reason to be here, but all I know is being here. I am still, in my mind, capable of being a product to be consumed, but nobody wants to consume me anymore. No, that's not it. Some people do. But, I'm not at all necessarily tired or exhausted mentally. It's much less exhaustion. It's just this very quiet intolerance and almost shame in the state of things, I guess. Because what more can I be with what little I feel I am right now? Not that there should be any reason to answer that question when you have a fulfilling means to exist or several fulfilling means to exist outside of the screen. But as things are now, I don't really. I'm not like other people in that sense. It's a few months before I have school again, is what I mean. So, in the meantime, in open spaces like this, in these intervals in which I don't really have anything to preoccupy me, like shitloads of assignments and schoolwork, besides assignments, extracurriculars. I do have a social life, but besides that, if I don't have significant amounts of things to be preoccupied with, then I am left with time to myself. And the thing is, I'm not one of those people who grew up to develop a proper sense of okayness, a sense of stillness with myself. I always have to be in pursuit of the validation that comes with existing and being perceived. And also, the other day I wrote something along the lines of how I used to emotionally self-regulate through maintaining my popularity because it was both immediate and massive, but now that my algorithmic standing is volatile, it just feels fickle and demoralizing. I think that's what I was trying to say here. And that in itself is tiring when it isn't rewarded on occasion, but these days often. That's the thing in general about being in pursuit of quieting that stillness through validation. It's fickle. It's you can't rely on it unless you were lucky, which I was at some point, but I'm not anymore. I wrote this thing the other day about how me navigating life outside of being a spectacle on the internet is like a housewife trying to navigate being alive after a divorce without having gotten a college degree. I didn't develop that sense of normalcy like other people, precisely because I grew up as a content creator more than a friend to others or a person who goes to school, comes home. I have lived a very non-average life in every conceivable way, at the very least, in the form of isolation. Very few people in the world know isolation in the way that I do. Physical and mental isolation. I'm only really referring to being homeschooled for several years, but I know how to make it sound like remarkably dramatic. But still, the point stands. Not many people know what it is like to be as alone as I have known it. And I say alone rather than lonely, because I have very rarely in my life ever felt lonely. The capacity of mine to externalize my existence on the internet, it preceded whatever chance I could have felt lonely, if that makes sense. Now that I think about it, my being on the internet has always preceded any chance I could have had to feel lonely. And that is on the most part a good thing. But it came at its, disadvantages, like all things. Getting used to that, and so psychosocially developing in a different way. Like, I feel as if my neurochemical dynamics are different than that of most people's in a very unique way, precisely because of the content creator thing and the isolation thing. Well, that applies to everybody. Everyone is neurochemically different. But I guess I just mean the ways in which I am pathological are not very relatable. And so that's kind of the difficulty that comes to be whenever I try to talk about myself, because I have gone through things, or at least I've gone through this singular mass of things that is very uniquely my own experience, my own lived reality. That's kind of distanced because it is so far up relative to everybody else, or it was so far up. It's so far up relative to where I am now. My dad came in, I've lost my train of thought, which is unfortunate, but it's not like I had much to say. It's not like I was saying anything besides repetitive lines of vague whatever. But I hope that some of it made sense. It is, by every measure, a non-issue, what I am talking about. This cognitive dilemma of mine, it's really nothing when you take into account that I'm going to start school soon, and I might as well just do some advanced reading, hang out with my friends as much as I practically can, prepare for my scholarship application, study a language. I'm not going to say which language, more diligently. What I'm saying is, if I were to allocate my attention into things that actually matter, then I wouldn't be talking about this. And so I am talking about this in this moment because I struggle to allocate my attention in the proper places because of that which is habitual to me, which is just trying to make my existence known on my little phone. I don't even like doing it. And it isn't nearly as rewarding as it was at its peak. And it never is going to be anymore. I'm not chasing after that. I know that it could never be anything like it at this point or at any point in the future. It's had its time. And I would say, absolutely fine with that. Or at least I'd like to be. On the most part, I am fine. I'm fine with it. It's just that, I guess that what I have been trying to say, in short, is that it is what I am experiencing, by its very nature, just existentially dreadful, because it's loss. In whichever way you look at it, it's the loss of something which, although it wasn't truly valuable in any tangible way, it still was something that I dedicated time to, and that I grew used to doing. And so the loss of its importance, its meaning, the loss of its significance to others and to myself leaves me hollowed out in the space which it filled. And so I could look at this as being cathartic, because now I am granted the chance to just be. And so I would be lying if I said that the struggle wasn't in the fact of that very position, being left to my own devices, being left to just exist, but not having the option to externalize that fact. It's like, shit, this is boring. It is so boring to be just like everybody else. And though there is so much appeal in that, there is so much peace in that. When you grow up in the way that I did, at least within this very specific point in my adolescence and early adulthood, you come to not really yearn for that peace nearly as much as the exhilaration that comes with algorithmic reward, which is attention in the attention economy. You have come to learn to function through that system alone. And so learning to be, and even if being meant being free, it's like, I don't know how to do that, or at least, more correctly, I know how to do that, but it's so boring. But at the end of the day, I'm talking about this now because in my continued pursuit to still exist on the internet, it's dreadful because I'm not rewarded anymore. It has only ever been a game of giving myself away and then hoping to gain something in return. And now that that system has been broken because I've had my time, it's like, okay. Whatever. Okay, I'd like to talk about something else. Come to think of it, in all honesty, I think that a lot of my internal conflict for the past several minutes has to just be based within how I'm not a very interesting person. I don't have very much to say. That's it. And those two things are not prerequisites for anybody. You don't have to be interesting. You don't have to have shit to say, but it feels conflicting to me because I feel that I have to be those things. I have to be unbelievably fascinating, just kind of interesting, kind of funny, at least, or something, or like some semblance of amusing or comforting, and also maybe informative and helpful in the way of being, well, wise. No, I'm not wise. I'm not nearly as, I just don't have anything to tell you. There is this sort of pressure whenever I am talking on video, and I believe whenever anybody is talking on video in front of a camera, there's this pressure to contribute to the viewer, to the audience. But I don't like that quality. I don't like perceiving it in others. I don't like that is what the culture online has come to be. This need that so many creators feel to have to contribute to others to feel valuable. I've always stood with the idea, the feeling that it's okay to not have anything substantial to leave a person with. Because if that was a prerequisite for you in order to exist on the internet, in order to feel as if you have a place, that would be really sad. That would leave the internet to be just a really sad transactional place. That's what it feels like. It feels so transactional, superficially. I don't like it. I don't like the kinds of videos that are like, give me 12 minutes of your life and you'll never have to waste any of it again, or something like that. The fact that has become a trend, it's great, but I wish that people didn't have to feel as if that were necessary. I wish that more and more people talked just to talk, just to showcase who they are as a person, how their thoughts flow. That's significantly more valuable to me than people forcing the pursuit to be of value to me. Just to benefit themselves, ultimately. It feels very superficial. And so, I really like people who are just, talking to the camera for the sake of it, not as a means to an end, but just, because it's nice. I noticed that I become gradually more natural in front of the camera with time. When I begin, I am obviously so weirdly stiff, and my intonation is different, my diction is different, my posture, most of all, is different. I don't know if my posture has had any improvement within the last minutes. It probably isn't any better, but it feels more human. That's the thing, when I start to talk in front of the camera, I don't feel human, I feel orchestrated. And that's something I've always known about myself. It's just habit, it's just instinct. Like, having made videos for a long time doesn't make you more skilled than the average person at looking like a human being and seeming like a human being and not a mannequin in front of the camera, unless you are particularly very conscientious of not being that. But one thing that doesn't really change is my vocabulary. Even if I come to sound more natural with the way I pronounce things, the flow of my words in themselves, they're still convoluted in the way that I don't intend for them to be. It's just how I think. It's just how I think because I am autistic.